Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday, so you know what time it is. It is time for Sportswire Radio to speak all things related to your favorite wrestlers. And our guest here tonight, this afternoon, wherever you may be, is no different than anybody else we've had on here. What a decorated career he has had here in the world of backyard wrestling. He is a not one, not two, not three, but a four-time EHW World Champion. His journey speaks for itself. When you think about wrestling in the upstate area, this guy is one of the guys that comes to mind here. I can't wait to have him on here. You look at him, you look at that championship. This is something we are all excited about here. We've been waiting for this here for quite a while. So wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one, the Rebels Macho, wrestling star here, and our current EHW heavyweight champion of the world, Stephen Helbig. The champ is here. The champ, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
We'll see how my voice holds up in about 2 hours or so. Then I'm back on the air later tonight covering American sports, which we're going to have to cut a little bit in length because I don't think I'm going to have much left to do 3 hours there. But that is here nor there. And Stefan, it's a tremendous honor to have you. And been wanting to have you here for a while, as we talked about at the top. And we've been speaking on and off the air about you and off the air with you and kind of getting this together here. So for those that are listening here and watching on Sportswire Radio, talk about the EHW champion as our flagship for the company, and talk about winning that championship late last year and what it means.
It's actually a pretty crazy story. The championship was vacated for over 20 years. There was a little talk of maybe starting it up again, and the whispers turned into roars, and decided to put on a match and pretty much took it from there. Winning wasn't something that I thought was going to happen. I was the only former champion in the match, so other guys were fairly new to it. But here I am, the champ. I'm going to take it to heights that it's never been. It's up for any kind of I'll defend it anywhere. I'll take it anywhere, any promotion. Literally, that's what it's here for. It's just to represent backyard wrestling in general, and I'm honored to defend it no matter where it is.
Talk to me about the fact that it was 20 years basically where this company didn't exist. I mean, what were you doing in the 20 years that this didn't all come to fruition? I mean, I find that so fascinating there. Talk about that story.
So I actually, things were going really well, and I actually got scouted from a company in Amsterdam. It's not even worth mentioning. They don't exist anymore, but
Sure.
an independent company that I did train with for a little bit. And honestly, it was around the time that I was getting a little older, and I met somebody in the other American dream, like just living that life of family, and that's kind of the road that I went down, and that's honestly all that happened. That's where I went. I was doing the family thing, and recently that didn't work out, and my love for wrestling started to like blossom and blossom and blossom, and that's why I'm back. I'm 40 years old now. I know my time isn't really that long, but I feel like I can still move like I did when I was a teenager, like I did when I was 20s training. Which
Well, 40 is not what it used to be. Listen, when we were kids, right, 30 years ago, you think, 40, you're like an old fart. But 40 is like the new 25, I guess you could look at it,
Yeah, I mean, I maybe that little gap put a little longevity because the stuff that I do isn't really for everybody. I mean, I've been put through a lot of situations where my body should have been broken, or and I haven't been. So maybe that little thing was a good way to keep me going now. So I
You
got
know,
some
you could
stuff to prove.
look at it and say, well, you know what? If I would have kept going, if I would have kept soldiering on, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. I mean, you look at it, and wrestlers sometimes go away, or they started at a certain age, and it kind of helps them. I mean, Shawn Michaels, for example, was out of wrestling for 4.5 years, and that time to heal his body gave him, I would argue, the second run he had was better than the first run he had as a single star. So sometimes you can look at it, and maybe in a way that long break from wrestling has maybe kind of prolonged your career, if for what that's worth.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I don't have to worry about like nagging injuries or anything like that because I've maintained a pretty good lifestyle. So
I'm happy to hear that. I want to get to a couple of comments here. I want to give a big shout out to my very good friend, almost like my adopted uncle at this point in the UK. That is Uncle Ralph. Of course, Uncle Ralph manages the Modern Day Mafia now in CCW, and the Modern Day Mafia are going to be a huge part of things here in 2023. And Uncle Ralph says good evening. And Uncle Ralph also says, young pups, get into your 70s and still be enthusiastic. Old is gold. Oh, listen, I mean, I saw a video the other day of Terry Funk, and Terry Funk has got to be, I want to say, 76 or 77. And I mean, Ric Flair, we all saw last year in the ring at 73, and he's still talking about maybe going back out there again, and he's not done. So, I mean, you just never know. I mean, listen, Vince McMahon's got to be 77 going on 78, and he looks like he's still got the muscles, but he's got the money that he's giving away here, and that's here nor there. But I wanted to ask you, because I find this interesting. You know, I've interviewed Stefan, I've interviewed musicians, I've interviewed politicians, I've interviewed athletes, wrestlers, and those who I've had on in the past on Sportswire Radio. In 4 years I'm doing this, when there's a break or they didn't think they were going to come back into something, I'm always curious on, was there periods of time when you were starting a family or in different things in life, you were saying, hey, whether it was 5 years ago, 7 years ago, hey, I'm going to do this again, or hey, it's never going to happen? Or was there ever thoughts and different things that came to mind, let's say years ago, that, we're kind of thinking up to this moment? Or, I mean, just walk me through those experiences where, you're out of it and just,
I
you
mean,
know,
it's over 20 years of opportunity that I turned my back to. There's that. Uh, the Some of the people that I was working with in Amsterdam are on TV. It's just um, my goals changed, and that's literally all it was my goals changed. But there wasn't a moment that I wasn't passionate about it. That like I don't know. It's that scene in The Wrestler where he's walking to his job and he hears a crowd roaring, but he opens a curtain and it's to the deli. Like you get that feeling when you're just there's something different about performing than there is about living your everyday life. It's unexplainable. It's very addicting. It's one of the main reasons why wrestlers perform. You know, there's a rush to it. There's like I don't. I like putting myself through situations where it's like that was insane. Like I cannot believe that I'm okay. But
well, that's what I'm saying. You had to have missed it. I mean, you had to, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you had to have saying in the back of your mind, you know what? I want to come back. I want to do this. I'm still a young man, and I know responsibilities come into play. I never forget my father, when he was alive, was a musician, and I remember I was born, and he was basically trying to live the dream, and he played CBGBs and all these places. Then it was like I was born, and it was like, well, I have to get a full time and a real job because I'm born, right? I mean, so you had to go through those same things and say, you know what, man, I missed this, and I got to do it.
I mean, I don't honestly. I don't have any regrets. I have two beautiful daughters. I love my daughters with everything.
Sure.
I don't have any regrets, and this isn't more for my return. This is more for what I can do now that I'm more mature, now that I'm, you know what I mean? This doesn't have to be about me. I want to like get together with other people that are passionate about it, that feel the same way that I do, and see where we can take backyard wrestling. Like, there's no reason why trained wrestlers that aren't in a promotion can't enjoy themselves and put on a great show. There's no reason why that needs to be looked down upon. Um, that's just how I feel. I feel like um, I have a little bit left to offer, and while I can offer that, I want to see where our backyard wrestling can actually go.
Sure, no question about that. And Uncle Ralph here says he'll be 75 in October. And my birthday is also in October. So happy early birthday to Uncle Ralph. And I mean, talk to me then about EHW. And you're the champion. You've been the champion 4 times in the past, as I spoke about at the top. I mean, where does the company go from here into 2023 now that things have restarted?
Um, we have ideas that are a different direction, that are a little bit more hauntingly violent and fun. And I hope that everything that we're planning, that we're going to be bringing to that, does come to, like, I hope it manifests into something, because the ideas, I believe, are brilliant. The matches that we could do are really fun. But in the meantime, right before um, that gets going, I'm going to get in my car and travel a couple hours out of my way to Rochester, and um, there's a brand new promotion starting out there. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a big event out there, and I think it would be a great thing to do to defend my title. For people that are not in EHW, this is me going out of my company. This is what I want to do. Defend my title, and see what happens with that. I'm gonna hang it up, put out a ladder. Uh, a death ladder match is gonna happen in April, and anybody that wants to be involved is more than welcome. There's no set number on how many opponents that I'm willing to take in that match.
Well, it's funny you said that, and Rochester automatically thinks of a couple of recent guests that have come on to Sportswire Radio. But before I touch upon one more recent guest, I mean, I think it's fascinating that you talk about forbidden doors in a way and going to different places, because I feel like with wrestling, doesn't matter what type of wrestling, I think it's almost important that you go out and seek new ventures, seek new opportunities, because at the end of the day, you talked about the 20-year layoff. And I don't care what it is in life, the world has changed completely from 20 years ago to the way it is today. We couldn't think about connecting with people like we do on Sportswire Radio here, where we're able to connect with people like Uncle Ralph in the UK, Prince Dagan, the CCW Light in the Dark world champion there. And he's Colory Championship Wrestling. And you and I are from different parts of New York. We would not have been able to have really connected 20 years ago. So I think like what you're trying to do here is really important, especially in the wrestling world here. And talk about how important that is to be able to network and branch out and go out and wrestle other people in different places to kind of see who really is the best.
Yeah, I think the more that different, not just in New York, I think the more that different promotions work together and unify their ideas, the bigger it can become. And that's what I said. I want backyard wrestling to be a loud roar that wrestling fans can't ignore. And they want to check it out. They want to see why it's getting so good. Um, I want it to be an alternative to the alternative, and I think it can be. I think there's no, like I said, there's no reason why well trained people can't go out there and put on a great show. Why that can't get buzz. Um, Going out to Rochester is a big part of that. I want uh, Rochester Wrestling Alliance (RWA)
I
to
was going to get to them. Yep. Well, we
I
know a
want
little bit
that
about them.
to get buzz. I want that to be exciting. I want RWA to be huge, because I'm going there, and it's their grand opening, and I actually I've been talking to RWA very often. I'm pretty much a part of RWA at this point while I'm on venture, and matches are looking really really good. There's going to be some excitement there. The titles are gorgeous belts. There's a ring. There's so much potential, and I think people should check it out. Um, I think it's going to be big, and I think it has to grow. Honestly,
Well, speaking of that here, and the Rochester Wrestling Alliance, because I'm sure you're aware of that there is a guest a couple of weeks ago that came on to Sportswire Radio that's involved in that, and his name is John The Rock Jackson. And of course, John The Rock Jackson is a movie guy. He does some film work, production, directing, some acting. Also, at his time, he was an 18-time champion in various different wrestling entities, and that's a company that is kind of his baby. And I mean, any thoughts you want to have on Mr. Jackson? As obviously, I'm sure that you're familiar with him, and you're the champion, your company, and it sounds like maybe you guys could be working together.
as I was saying, as far as reaching out to people that have that same vision should unify. That's a prime example. I'm getting very, very close with John the Rock Jackson, and I want to see that company grow, and I'm actually vested my time in helping that company grow. So, I mean, he's got a brilliant mind. You can't ignore when somebody is passionate about something. You can't ignore that.
He is. Oh, he definitely is. I mean, what he's done in his life when it comes to movies and writing and wrestling, he's definitely a passionate guy.
I mean, it brings. I'm drawn to that. I feel that same way. We come from a very very similar background where there was no audience, where there wasn't even cameras before cameras, and then video cameras turned into VHSs, and who sees this content other than your friends? And like before you could just film live anywhere, like we were putting everything we had into things.
Sure.
um no, I admire his passion. I like working with him. I want RWA to be successful because I think everybody involved deserves it.
Absolutely, no question about it. And it's so funny that you talked about, let's say, 25 years or so ago when maybe we were wrestling in backyards. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And there's a little period, I'd say, maybe about a year or so, that we were trying like on pavements, and we were trying to do different things. And a lot of it wasn't to the degree that you tried. But I never would have thought, hey, people around the world, or there would have been a page on the internet where thousands of people would have just watched the match, or just everything we would have did. It was almost like, we were like kids, and we were just trying to enact what we saw on, whether it was in WWF at the time, WCW, ECW, maybe not to that degree. You guys probably would have did more of that because you guys are a little more hardcore than I was. But just nobody would have thought, hey, look at where we are today. And there's companies like RWA, EHW's back. We're very good supporters of Wrestling Championship Entertainment, which is in Wisconsin. And there's a match out there in their company between Darkfire and Monday's guest Craven Rage, who's the champion there. It's got like 4,000 or 5,000 views. So it's just such a different world there. So you might as well want to go out there and get these opportunities. And I was curious for those that are listening and watching here, where is EHW located?
Like Saratoga, Boston area.
Okay. Okay, so that is, for those that are following here, I believe just up past the Hudson Valley in New York, kind of by where everybody goes for in the summer for racing, for the big racetracks.
Yeah, yeah, the Saratoga racetrack. Yep, yep.
Yep.
It's a good attraction.
I'm sure you must get anytime you mention you're from Saratoga. Oh, the racetrack. Oh, right, you live
Yeah,
by the racetrack, right?
for sure, for sure. It's not not really a town for wrestling, that's for sure.
No. It's got a minor league baseball stadium, right? I'm pretty sure. And it's got the racetrack. That's kind of, it's
Yeah.
one of those towns there, in New York. A lot of people think, oh, New York City, and they think about the five boroughs. But actually, most of New York is more like other parts of the country where it's kind of small town, kind of almost like the UK. A lot of our UK towns here that support us on Sportswire Radio, very similar. And, only a small number of people, and there's very limited things to do. And everybody kind of knows one another. High school football might be big, or in the UK, it could be club football. So there's a lot of similarities there. So that's why we're very, very excited here to have on our guest here tonight to kick things off here for our 4-year anniversary of me doing this with the Sports Report and Sportswire Radio. His name is Stephen Havoc, and Stephen Havoc has caused a lot of havoc. He is a not one, not two, not three, but a 4-time EHW and the current world heavyweight champion. There, you're going to see him in a lot of big places coming up. I've got a big feeling that this guy is going to be somebody you're going to see a lot throughout 2023. And again, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, you can like us on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube, subscribe to our pages on Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com. And we'll be here in about 40 or so minutes. We'll get to hear from CeeLo Brown from the Wrestling War Zone, a few other places in the Southern California area. Really excited to have CeeLo Brown. I'm going to ask him if he's related to D'Lo Brown, but I'm sure that's not going to be the case, but we'll certainly find out. But right now, we are very honored to have on Stephen Havoc. And Stephen, I'm always curious, for those that are listening and watching this on Sportswire Radio, I mean, how did you start this wrestling journey where you became this big-time backyard wrestling legend? It's going to be wrestling in different places. I mean, talk to us, for those that are listening and watching, on how the journey all began.
I mean, just two young kids, maybe 16, just learning moves and beating the heck out of each other in the backyard and talking about it in school, and other people like, hey, what are you guys doing? And I mean, pretty much is how it all began. Is I I've always, before I even went to Amsterdam,
Sure.
I always watched wrestling a little different. I saw the talks, I saw the, this guy protecting that guy, and I saw it differently than most people did.
Mm-hmm.
When they were really, really off, I could see it. And the punch is like so far away, and but I learned a lot just by knowing that, watching that, and mimicking that, which isn't really the safest way for most people to learn things. But
Sure.
I had already done sports and stuff like Taekwondo, and you'd be surprised how learning to fall in Taekwondo is learning to fall anywhere
I
else.
remember in second grade, I took Taekwondo, and I did it for a summer as a little kid, and it was like I couldn't really do it. I couldn't get the hang of it. So even Taekwondo is not as easy. I could kind of see that similarity there a little bit.
But as far as just two kids beating each other up in a backyard and it growing, and then we were like, we should create a title, and more people came, and we started videotaping it, and I have very dated 20-year footage of all kinds of cool stuff that we used. But I think it's time for a new adventure. I think it's time to see what else can happen, pretty much.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, looking forward to seeing what you do. And it was a pleasure to watch you win the title here. We'll get to that in a little while. I know we kind of touched upon it. But yeah, I think about when you started, I would imagine we're talking about late 90s, kind of similar to when I kind of tried. I'm a little younger than you, but I mean, I kind of tried that whole little backyard wrestling thing. And that was kind of the height of when professional wrestling was like blew up. It was in the mainstream and kind of right in your face. You think about the Attitude Era in the WWF at the time with The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Degeneration X, and then you had WCW with Goldberg and the NWO, and then you had ECW there, which you kind of remind me you would have fitted it more into ECW, because ECW to me was always that company which was based here in the tri-state area, the New York, Pennsylvania area, where that was really where I think a lot of wrestlers kind of really gravitated to, where they went into it. I mean, so who were some of the wrestlers that maybe you said, you know what, that's who I want to imitate when I go out there and become this big backyard wrestling legend?
When when I started watching as a little kid and stuff, I was always like, I liked the Ultimate Warrior. I
Sure.
liked Tatanka. I liked the flashy colored guys and stuff. But when I
Sure.
actually started following wrestling, um, Shawn Michaels, he changed. He changed it. Like he was a little guy that was getting noticed. Bret Hart.
Yep. Yep.
That era alone, when the little guys started taking over, was like way well beyond. You know what I mean? Dynamite Kid. Even before that, watching old footage of like
Well, last night we just had on Hammerhead Smith, and he wrestled the Dynamite Kid's nephews at the Billington Bulldogs. So what a small world! You mentioned the Dynamite Kid there.
that's such sounds like such an honor to just even like touch a part of that. Like
Yep.
uh, he was brilliant in the ring, way ahead of his time.
No question. No question.
As I got a little older, I liked ECW. ECW was definitely. I stayed up very, very late to watch that. I was very tired going to school because of um. But I mean, Raven was one of the guys that I
Yep.
liked
Yep.
watching, and then Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, that era.
Yep.
There's a swear word here. Chris Benoit, brilliant in the
I
ring.
still have a. I hate to say this because somebody's gonna shoot me for this, but I actually still have a Chris Benoit shirt. I for whatever reason, I was in college, and I think like my parents wanted like to like throw out stuff in my room, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm for whatever reason, I'm gonna keep the Chris Benoit. This was right after, unfortunately, we all found out what happened. Like, no, you know what? I'm gonna keep this shirt. It was from WrestleMania 20. I'm like, I don't know why, it's sick, but I'm gonna keep this shirt just as a moment. I don't know why, but I
Thank,
have it still.
thank God for wrestlers like Kurt Angle that reminded me of that kind of intensity
Yep.
and like
Intensity,
away.
integrity, intelligence.
You
Yep.
can move away from that, but like back then, nobody matched that intensity and that in your face kind of like just that stubborn opponent that he was. It was
Yep.
brilliant. It was something that you didn't see out of everybody, and now you see that. I mean, you can see a little of that through everything. I just enjoy wrestling as a whole. Like even now, I mean, like, look at Roman Reigns. Hated a few, like not a few, a while ago. Absolutely hated, and now you love to hate him, or you.
Well, I think the bloodline right now is. I mean, we talk about this on some of our shows. The bloodline very well might go down as one of the greatest factions in wrestling history. I mean, I personally think they surpassed the NWO because of just how long they've held these championships and what they've done here with the crowd and just the amount of time they've been together and just everything else that they've done. And they've been so smart not expanding it to like where the NWO had like 500 members. I mean, they've really done this and they've prolonged this. And you make an excellent point there about Roman Reigns.
I mean, just because you feel it, I don't know. It was. I just remember feeling like he was, being thrown at you, and it always felt like he just wasn't ready. He just wasn't ready. And then
Yeah.
when it finally happened, you're not wrong. The bloodline's going to be talked about for a while. I wouldn't say as far as surpassing NWL.
They've been around together as a group just about a little longer. A
One
little
of
longer.
my biggest memories in watching wrestling and on TV is just watching Nash dart Mysterio into that
Yep.
trail. That
Yep.
takeover is such an iconic takeover, and that's hard to top. It's hard to top. There's a couple of those. I mean, just seeing Shane McMahon in a WCW ring, like those
Well, how
things.
about Goldberg and Hogan in the Georgia Dome? That's a
I
big
mean,
one too.
the big one, and those kind of things, they just stand with you. And I mean, maybe when I'm knocking on my death door, I'll, I'll reminisce about the antics of Zayn and the Bloodline. But I mean, it's amazing, and it's literally the heartbeat of WWE right now. Like, I don't know where they would be without that storyline right now.
No, listen. I think they would have a hell of a lot of problems because Raws sometimes are almost unwatchable and just some of the other talent that they have on there. It's a mixed bag to say the least. But certainly no questions about all that stuff here. And I was curious on something and it touched upon when it came to maybe some of the things on your journey. And I mean, did you ever feel like that there was somebody that you really said, "Hey, you know what? I when backyard wrestling, maybe I would look upon them for advice." I mean, was there anybody, you're starting at 16 with friends. Was there anybody that maybe you maybe looked upon or spoke to for advice and anything like that? I know it's kind of like a question that maybe you weren't expecting, but I kind of feel like, was there
It,
anybody out there?
it was really hard to like reach out or do anything like that, honestly. And when we started to grow in numbers, a bunch of 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, it was kind of hard to like not be involved in that. You know what I mean? Like, we weren't really looking for anything on the outside. We kind of, I think at the time, felt like we were really on to something, and it probably were ahead of our time, honestly.
Sure.
But, no, I mean, we didn't really reach out like that, and didn't really.
Would you have wanted it? Would you have looked for it? I mean, let's say today, right? Because today it's a different time, right? We have social media, we have YouTube to put our footage on, we have technology tools that can, whether it's with tripods, whether it's with cameras, whether it's smartphones, we'd be able to have all that footage. Do you feel like, in some ways, and I asked John Jackson this question, which is kind of why I wanted to ask you the same question. Do you feel like if you would have had those opportunities, let's say today, if you were starting out, would you have wanted that?
Uh, Probably. I wish that I could take some of the knowledge that I had and went back and maybe would have set things a little bit more to. There was ways to get people to watch, but it was very, very difficult, you know. And we were getting people watching, like I said, I got scouted through it, which was crazy. Um, which still blew my mind to this. Like, how did you even see me? You know, like, but we were making tapes, and people were copying those tapes. Um, but as far as like doing anything like that, we were too. I just feel like we were too young and too involved in what we were doing to even think of it as anything at the time.
Sure.
And by the time it was on its way of like everybody's splitting and separate, you know, like just doing their own things. Um, I don't even think that I even thought the it thought we had that mindset that it was ever going to be like it could have been something or would have been something or we should have reached out or because like by the time we were done, the social media was getting there. It was getting there. There
Yeah, you
was,
said 20 years ago, so that brings us to like 2003. So you probably just had MySpace. MySpace was still kind of a thing, and
I think
and
01 was the last time that we did it. So
okay, that's the days of like the AOL instant messenger groups, right? Those are, maybe you would have had some of that you would have used, right? If I'm thinking about those wrestling message boards and such.
yeah, but now we're like, you know, in our 20s and it's either like what are we going to do, you know? So I mean, some people are doing they're doing entertainment in a different field, like one of the guys that I wrestled, Anarchy, back in the day or whatever. He's got a band and I think they're doing pretty well, and actually my entrance music is
I was gonna ask you about the entrance music. That's an excellent segue. And before I do that, I want to give a big shout out to a young trainee out in the UK who always seems to watch us on Sportswire. Says, "Hello, gents, and Stefan, love the Spider-Man hoodie. You want to talk about the Spider-Man hoodie because Casey Bradley loves your hoodie there. You want to talk about your love of Spider-Man because we see all the Spider-Man stuff there. We might as well talk about it."
I have an obsession with spiders in general, and Spider-Man kind of just happened. So I mean, yeah, I have like 5 or 6 different Spider-Man hoodies. So thank you.
I appreciate that. You'll probably chuckle. There was a baseball player, Glenn Allen Hill. He had played for the Yankees, a number of teams. Was an okay player. And actually, he was actually at the time when they called it the disabled list. He was actually put on the disabled list because he was sleeping one day and a spider. He was sleeping on a couch. He was in between different teams, and he was getting traded, and he was sleeping on the couch, and a spider kind of rolled up on him. He wound up falling into a coffee table and getting onto the at the time the 15-day DL, and that you would appreciated that. And also, Casey says, "Nice to meet a fellow nerd." Well, I'm not going to call you a nerd because you are certainly a daredevil. You are a legend when it comes to the wrestling world. So I'm not going to do that. Casey might be able to do that because he's out there in training, and somebody else has tuned in here, and that is Mr. C2K. Mr. Courage to Kill. He says, "Sup, Stefan." Anything you want to say to Mr. C2K? Anything else on your mind with him? I might as well, because C2K is always in the house here on Sportswire. He says you're his brother, my brother.
I hope to see C2K in April. Is all I'm gonna say. That's not a
Well,
challenge. That's not a. We could shake hands. We could go in the ring, but I'll see you in April, my brother.
Well, I'll tell you what, you and him, I mean, both certainly backyard wrestling legends. I mean, you've been in it for about 25 years or so, and he's been in it since 91, and he confirms and says yes. So I guess that could be something, a meeting of the minds. Almost, it would almost be, I guess, you might want to say upstate versus the Hudson Valley, you might want to say. I guess maybe, or the mid island, not mid island, mid state almost. I guess mid state versus upstate. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And he also says, "Yes, bro. Can't wait to see you in April." And April ain't too far away from now because right now, today is January 20th, which means good news for us here in upstate and downstate. We're 1/3 already through winter. So that means we're 2/3 there, not that far away. And also, Casey says, for some reason, cosplay is becoming popular in wrestling thanks to New Day and Johnny Gargano. Any thoughts there on that? You want to any thoughts there on Casey's comment here
I,
about cosplay?
it's kind of cool. Like uh, Finn Balor in New Japan. I used to pop at that, like the Joker gimmick, the Spider-Man gimmicks. Like that stuff's kind of cool, right? I mean,
I mean, Sting actually technically did it in TNA for a while. Remember, he had the Joker face paint. He kind of like morphed into. He sort of was doing that. I mean, Jericho kind of did that in Japan a little bit also.
he was cosplaying Crow long before he was cosplaying Joker. So that's. I mean, gimmicks in general are one form of cosplaying. There's aspects of this and that, but to directly do it to to the point where you can see what they're representing, I think it's fun. Throw Easter eggs out there, have fun. Absolutely.
And I think the one that kind of nobody really thinks about well is Mick Foley actually had three different characters, technically. I mean, he was Cactus Jack, he was Dude Love, and Mankind. And famously, he was two of them in the same night, and well, three of them in the Royal Rumble, actually, in 1998. So technically, I know that kind of gets overlooked there a little bit, but you'd have to say that maybe you'd throw him in there. And also, C2K says, "I'm very happy to see you here." And C2K will be back in the house here in a few weeks. But I did want to talk about your music because I have to say it's really, really well done. And I had a wrestler, Bentley, last night who has a band doing his music, and it sounds like it might be similar to yours. Very professional, very well done. Almost gave kind of, you talked about an alternative kind of thing you're looking for here in backyard wrestling. And I kind of feel like with your music, it gives off that very like alternate world type of like alternate hard rock, kind of like edgy type of vibe. I mean, kind of walk me through your theme music and why I think and many others think it's so good.
Um, I I've known the singer. I've known pretty much that band all my life, at least through high school and so on. Um, I thought there's a lot of reasons why I thought it would be a good idea to do something like that. First of all, I think he's a brilliant musician. His music's amazing. Kill All Betrayers, upstate New York. Check him out if you
Yes,
can.
please give us a plug. Anything you want to DM me later, a plug. I'll be happy to support the band. You got it.
But at the same time, like I figured it'd be a great way to. I think any local wrestler in their area should hook up with a local band and carry that. And not only that, but like I can take that to YouTube without worrying about rights. I can, I mean,
Bentley said the same thing last night. He said I was looking for a theme song or an entrance that I don't have to worry about the copyright. Same thing he said last night.
I just think I think that style wrestling and that style music there should be a collab there in general. There should be crazy events. There should be concerts and wrestling, and it's just a no brainer in my eyes. So I mean, if I can become something, or say other states and other countries start talking about me, I want them to also talk about Kill All Betrayers, because why not?
Well, I think a lot of people should, and I think Casey Jack Bradley says, I'm glad to be doing it as a full time gimmick. And I've always thought that music and wrestling should cross over. I always thought that there should be some venture or some type of things, and I've always kind of seen a lot of similarities between, at least in whether it's in the rock world and the wrestling world, or the heavy metal world, or the alternative world, whatever it might be that you're a fan of. Also, C2K is also big into hip hop. I always thought that there was some type of vibe because, listen, everybody needs music, right? Music is a part of the world. So as a wrestler, you need something to kind of set your mood, to get you going, to get that adrenaline going. And there's no question that you have that there. And I was also curious because we have different people out there from different places. I mean, is there any places that you'd like to wrestle or you have wrestled outside of, let's say, Saratoga or Amsterdam that maybe you thought would be kind of interesting to bring up?
I mean, I'm just kind of getting started again. And if honestly, I'll go. I mean, I'll wrestle anywhere I can. If anybody's looking, or if they're struggling, if there's any companies out there that, that's where I want to go. I want to go and I want to help, and I want to just make the whole thing as a whole as good as it can be. Um, as far as right now, I mean, going out of state, as long as there's some accommodations there, I have no issues for
Well,
sure.
there's one company out there that we're gonna have coverage for Monday night, starting 9 p.m. Eastern time. That is Wrestling Championship Entertainment, and they're out there in Wisconsin, which is a little bit of a ways away from us here. But I am sure that the promoter there and some of the talent, especially our guest coming on, Kodak Kid and Craven Rage, might find that interesting. So maybe Wrestling Championship Entertainment might be wanting to pay attention to what EHW World Champion Stefan Havoc has to offer. And C2K says RWA. Yes, C2K, we touched upon that with Stefan about RWA and the crossovers here. So, yes, that is definitely something that is in the pipelines, and hopefully we'll get that to be something that we'll talk about much further here on Sportswire. And you said something else here that I wanted to touch upon, and C2K has another comment, but I'll come back to that in a second, is that I actually feel like this time you actually can do more than in the first run that you had, because now that you have the experience, you have gone through things, whether it's in life, whether it's in the ring, that maybe you can give back. And maybe your greatest asset here in this second run will be what you can do in maybe passing off that knowledge, and maybe the pitfalls and the do's and don'ts that a lot of other people that you would not have been in the ring with wouldn't have heard from. So talk to me maybe about, in a way, this is a blessing, this second run here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's exactly my intentions. Um, I want to just. I mean, I've had my ups and downs, and I kind
Sure.
of, when I walked away, I literally walked away at probably the worst time, because I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, I don't have any regrets, but had there been somebody like me in my ear, you never know.
That's why I asked that question about 10 or 15 minutes ago, and saying, hey, if there was somebody that you would have looked upon, or what if you had that opportunity? Because you never know. Things would have been different. Maybe you would have been able to hang on. Maybe you could have juggled things differently. It's tough because I know at a young age, you have to give up, and then you get things. You get a family, you get responsibilities, you get family on their back. I know it's tough because at the end of the day, everybody goes through things in different ways. And C2K says Havoc is a great wrestler and a great legend. I have a lot of respect for Stefan. Casey Jack Bradley has a question for you. A question I would love to ask all wrestlers is, what makes a good gimmick a character, and how would the crowd take to you? How would you like to answer that?
It's kind of something that you got to feel out. A lot of it is experimenting, getting that feedback. If you get nothing back, then you're not doing anything right. Um, I there's not a lot of differences between myself and who Stefan Havoc. Um, I'm a little bit more aggressive. I'm a little bit more mean. But as far as it goes, if you take a lot of yourself and put that into your character and make that your gimmick, that's what resonates the most, I see. Or if you have like a really outlandish, fun gimmick and you put everything you have into that, those seem to work out as well.
Oh, we've seen that from time to time. And listen, Santino Morella is back in Impact, and I mean, he was one of those examples of a character that was kind of goofy, but really had a long run in the WWE with it. There was
Sure.
another wrestler we had on 2 weeks ago that talked about starting out with, which is the new Messiah, Nicholas Crenson, with Hornswoggle, because Hornswoggle, little known fact, was a backyard wrestler. And he went on to have a super duper long career in the WWE with a gimmick that really might people would have said was a novelty act, but he had a really really long career out there. So you just never know him. Stefan, I was curious because I always ask this question. I know because we're just starting out here in 2023, but what are your goals coming up here for this year?
Um, I'm gonna defend this as much as possible, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna hang on to it the entire year. Um, I want to dip my feet in other promotions, especially RWA. I might be going there a little bit more than just April. It might be a There might be a long term thing there. Uh, but I'm freeing up my schedule. I'm seeing where everything takes me, and I just want to have really really great matches. I want to work with a lot of people that really love this. I just want to see what we can all do.
Let me ask you a question because I was curious about this. You said some different things. And I kind of think, and tell me your thoughts, that there is a market out there for people that might want to see content, whether it's streaming, whether it's social media platforms like this or YouTube, that wrestling is wrestling, right? Backyard wrestling, whether it's whatever type of wrestling you may want to call it, right? I do think right now this is the right time to maybe go to different places, whether it's RWA, WCE coverage resumes back Monday on Sportswire Radio. We're going to have some other people as well. They're going to talk about their journey in some other states as well. We'll have an announcement for on Monday's show. Stay tuned for that. But I think in a lot of ways, just because of the platforms that we have, we can make this into something where we can get some streaming and people maybe to say, hey, you never know what's out there. Do you kind of feel that in a lot of ways this is the right time maybe to work with different companies, different wrestlers, because we have these platforms where we can be able to, go out there and distribute different things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more people that are working together, the more unification out there, the louder the voice becomes, and that's how I see it. And it's not even that; it's the more professional that you carry yourself in that direction, and try to kind of get rid of the naysayers and the like. Well, they're just doing unsafe things to hurt each other, kind of naysayers or whatever. Um, you just It's not like that. It's really not. There's no, like I said, there's no reason why well trained people can't go out there and create content.
Listen, the WC locker room, a lot of those guys, they were trained professional wrestlers. They had some type of career or some type of different things, but they're at a point in life that, they just aren't able to make, let's say, 20, 30 shows a year, and they still want to be able to go out there, and they go out there, whether it's once a month or twice a month within the seasons, because obviously in New York and Wisconsin, we have weather that unfortunately doesn't cooperate with us for 12 months of the year. But they go out there and they have a ring, they have the whole setup, and they're able to go out and they've got footage that has for shows 900, 1,000, 800, 1,600 in a match with Darkfire and Craven Rage that has 4,000 plus views. So I think in a way there is that avenue, and who knows, maybe we could have a streaming site to have matches live or whatever out there. You'd never know. I mean, in the UK, there was a company that we actually looked to purchase on Sportswire Radio that was doing it for independent shows. It's hard to make money off it, and that was one of the things that kind of ultimately for us, we didn't wind up doing it. But you just never know out there. So I kind of think the forbidden door should be open, and we'll have more places out there. In about 10 or so minutes, we will hear from CeeLo Brown. CeeLo Brown's going to be here in the house. So CeeLo had tried to log on here, but as I said to CeeLo, come back here as we've got still a little bit more to talk about here with Stefan Havoc, our reigning defending EHW world champion. Look at that championship, ladies and gentlemen. That belt is one of the most prized possessions in all, I don't care, wrestling, sports, you name it. People are going to be coming from all over the country and the world to try to take that title from Stefan. But Stefan's motivated. He's fired up. He's adrenalized. And something tells me here, you're going to have to pry it out of his cold, dead hands right now. So we are very, very excited to have on here Stefan Havoc. And I mean, I was always curious in this question. I mean, is there one or two moments for you, Stefan, that kind of stand out most in this journey so far?
I mean, I just, it's just like it's not one or two moments. It's that moment when you're doing it. It's just trying to. I mean, like I was saying that, uh, when we were kids and stuff, it was just literally about bettering ourselves from the last time and pushing ourselves.
Sure.
What can you do? Hey, let's try jumping off this roof. All right, why not? um, Honestly, it's that. Those are the moments. Like you get thrown through something that you shouldn't get thrown through, and you're like
The
hard steaming,
mattresses, the
adrenaline
trampolines.
going,
Yep.
and that's what it's all about, really.
You basically were kind of like the Young Bucks before the Young Bucks, and you were almost in that same range with the Hardys. Remember, the Hardys actually started out doing backyard wrestling back in, I think it was the early '90s or so. People actually forget about this, but if you saw one of the old WWF home videos way back in the day, they showed the Hardy Boys with Shannon Moore doing backyard wrestling. And Casey Jack Bradley says the championship looks so badass, it looks like something from Mad Max or Fallout. It's chef kiss beautiful. Was there an inspiration for the design of the title? Now that Casey has talked about this, is there any motive?
We always knew we wanted to make it out of saw blades. We always knew that. Honestly, 20 years ago, I always said that was the best title in all backyard wrestling, and you saw a bunch of you know world championship WWE belts spray painted, and you saw a lot
How
of.
about you remember the hardcore title? The hardcore title looked like it was like plastered on.
And then that was as kind of a Mick Foley's backyard career and
Yep.
making fake titles out of cardboard and whatever you could find. That's why that belt was funny to a lot of backyard wrestlers, is because it was literally like what they were using. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, but yeah, no, we always wanted to make it out of saw blades. So
That's pretty cool. I mean, I would never have thought to make a belt out of saw blades, but I got to say, you got a lot of credit there for it and the idea, and that's why you're the champion. That's why you're the brains behind everything, and I think that we're looking forward to seeing this championship. And obviously, I mean, we have a page out there. We've got your theme song. We've got the match, and I mean, have you watched the match since you were in it and won the title? And I mean, it was a really, really, really good match. I have to say. I mean, it just had a lot to offer there for a triple threat. And I mean, talk about the match, and have you gone back and watched it a lot since you won the title back late last year?
I did. I actually watched it with Saban recently.
Oh yes, Mr. Saban. Yes, Mr.
We sat
Saban.
together and we watched it, and I remember thinking, I remember where my mind was at in that match. It was late in the match, and I took a lot of headbutts, and my head was pounding, like it was ringing.
Well,
And
you guys did
like,
some stuff in that match. I don't know how you guys walked away. You walked out and just like kind of just walked out with the belt. I was like, how
oh,
are these guys doing this? I mean, I'm from Brooklyn. I would have been like probably like would have been taken to the emergency room, and my parents would have probably looked to choke me, if they were alive and everything else like that. So I mean, I don't know how you guys just walked away like that.
I mean, absolutely. All I remember is my head was just hurting, and in my mind, I was like, no way that his head's not hurting too. He smashed me with it so many times. So I figured just headshot him until he goes down and see what happens. And that's literally how I ended up winning the title. So, I mean, sometimes you got to think on your feet, and that's how it happened, really.
Well, certainly, desperate times call for desperate measures, and you certainly got the job done. And Casey says, I hadn't thought about this. I would love to see a championship out of a stop sign. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to ask that to some of the guys in Wrestling Championship Entertainment, who, by the way, their belts are very pretty as well. I want to give a big shout out to Wrestling Championship Entertainment. I'm sure that they'll be looking at some of the footage here from EHW. Before I get to closing thoughts, is there anybody else that we should keep an eye on in EHW that you think, hey, maybe we should be watching some of their content or up and coming talent? Anybody else that you're looking for or such?
I think the storylines moving forward are going to speak for themselves. It's not more of a someone, it's more of the whole thing in general. I think we
Okay.
really are trying to do things that have never been done, cross boundaries that have never been crossed. So I really do hope that that all works out.
I always like that. I always like that opinion of kind of taking things out of the box and doing something different. And, is the different things. I mean, certainly you should always try to think out of the box. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I had to ask you a fun question here. I mean, I see the tattoos. I mean, I got to imagine you got a bunch of tattoos there. Any inspiration toward the tattoos I see on your arms?
I just always, I love art. I've always been into art, it's part of expressing yourself and stuff. Actually, a lot of these I did myself. Uh,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, no, it's you either have them or you don't in this day and age. So
Well, it's funny you said that. I remember somebody saying to me to that a few years ago. People are like, "Oh, do you have a tattoo?" And I'm like, "Well, I never got one because I never really thought it was a good idea." I had a cousin that had like this goofy, like Grim Reaper looking tattoo on his leg, and it was like done like I don't want to say like ghetto-y, but it was just like it just didn't look terrible. Then I had his wife had a tattoo. Then my other cousin who's no longer with us had a tattoo, and it was like goofily looking done. Then I had a friend of mine who I grew up with was like 15 and getting tattoos, and they were like, I don't know, they just didn't look good. But yours looks like you're one of them that should have them. Whereas me, I don't know. I would get one maybe, but I think it's kind of the way to go about it is either you have it or you don't. That's always the line here. So,
yeah, I mean they're
you know,
actually a great way to like keep track of your own life. Like they don't necessarily ever really represent things. I mean, mine all have meaning, but it's not even the meaning that I was inspired to when I got them or did them. I think about the time where I was in life when I got it, and I can kind of remember and pick out my whole life just through, like, oh, I was this age when I got this, and I was doing this kind of thing. So, I mean, it's a cool way to write your story without actually writing a story.
absolutely, no question about that. And certainly, I'm looking forward to the story from your career is not over by a long shot. I really got a feeling that 2023 is going to be a big year for you and a big year for a lot of these different people that we spoke about here. And I'm really, really excited about the future. I know people always say on Sportswire these past 4 years, well, Tom, your enthusiasm, you're always optimistic, you're always hopeful. But no, I'm not always that way. But when I have great people like you on and great talent, I really, really am excited for the future here. But it's been a tremendous honor to have you. And I know you're a busy man. You're getting ready for putting together shows and putting together matches, footage, and I know you have a lot going on. So I wanted to give you the floor now. I wanted to give you any closing thoughts. Anything else you wanted to say to anybody who's listening, watching this about EHW, yourself, or anything else on your mind? And I'm really looking forward to having you on more, watching your content. Who knows, meet you one day here in the state of New York. So the floor is yours. Anything you want to plug, share, say, and I really can't thank you enough. And fire away, my friend.
I mean, it's not even really about me and plugging me. If anybody listening, anybody out there close to the Saratoga area, they want to do this, they just didn't know that there was somebody out there, they can get a hold of me. Anybody out in Rochester, they're interested. Um, Same thing goes. I can give you good connections so you can kind of start, going in that direction pretty much. Anybody that is interested in wrestling in general in New York that's willing to travel, get a hold of me because I am trying to do something bigger than all of us.
Well, you know what? Don't tell us fully yet. Don't tell us what you're going to do because I always tell wrestlers or any prospective talent or anybody else in management, don't tip your hand just yet. When the time comes, let us know on Sportswire Radio. We'll be happy to be a partner with you, whether it's recapping, talking with the different talent. That I can definitely promise you we'll be in the business for him. I also wanted to say one more thing on the tattoos. I had heard an interview from Jeff Tate, who was the former singer of Queensryche, and they had asked him because I was thinking of you just now, and he started getting tattoos, and he was like me, who never had tattoos, and all of a sudden, in the last like 5 years, he's gotten a bunch of tattoos, and they asked him, well, Jeff Tate, you're 64, 65 years old. Why are you getting tattoos now? Well, he's like, I'm not going to apply for a bank job anymore. I'm not going to go out and get a real job. I might as well just tattoo up all my body because by the time I'm going to be dead, there'll be something you can remember me from. So I guess that's one way to look at it. Another example of this is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho didn't have any tattoos. We were watching him growing up, and now he's got a bunch of them. Even Hulk Hogan now has tattoos. I mean, maybe that's the way I should go about it. Maybe in about 20 years from now or 25 years from now, or maybe I think about maybe I'm going to be at the shorter end of the stick in life. Maybe I'll get a bunch of tattoos and maybe I'll try to imitate you, but most likely not. But it has been a tremendous honor, and I really can't wait to see what the future brings from you and everything else you're doing. You're a great guy. You've got a lot of things to talk about, and we'll definitely look forward to speaking with you soon here. And congratulations on the championship, and great thinking there on the saw blade made have the title here. So we'll definitely speak with you soon, my friend Stefan, and cause some more havoc out there for us.
Will do.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, here we were joined by backyard wrestling legend Stefan Havoc, who is our current EHW world champion. You'll see him in action here coming up later this spring here with possibly places like RWA and much, much more. So definitely follow him on his Facebook page. You can give him a personal message and much, much more. So very, very excited to have him on here. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to bring him on. This is a real treat for us here tonight on Sportswire Radio. This has been one of the guys I've been really wanting to have on here because we're friends with, obviously, the promoter of a company he works for called the Wrestling Warzone. They've got a huge show coming up here on February the 4th out there in Southern California. It's called All's Fair in Loving Warzone, and he's going to be a part of it. It's a really, really intriguing match. They call it a breakout match. He needs no introduction, but we're giving it to him anyway. So let's without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show, pro wrestling star here from the Wrestling Warzone. His name is CeeLo Brown, a.k.a. C-Love. We feel the love here with you, my friend. How are we doing?
Doing good right now. I'm actually dog sitting right now.
Oh, well, lucky you, I guess, and certainly lucky us because we have the good fortune, CeeLo, to have you on here on Sportswire Radio, and it is a tremendous honor, and obviously I've been speaking with the promoter of the Wrestling Warzone, Mr. Darrow Johnson, and Darrow has been a very good friend to us here on Sportswire Radio. So, I mean, set the tables for us and what we can expect coming up here February the 4th at All's Fair in Loving Warzone at the Spring Valley Gymnasium.
Well, for starters, of course, you'll see me. And for the breakout is basically the 6-man tag team. Well, not 6-man tag, but it's 3 corners tag. And the winner of that match will go on to the next big show, which has yet to be determined, to face the next team for the later show, to go up against them to basically fight for the newly crowned WWZ Tag Team Championship.
Well, this is going to be a big thing, obviously, to start out for a new company and to have a new championship. And right off the bat here, I got to think this is a really, really big way for you to start 2023 by winning this match and going on to hopefully get that crack at those championships.
Oh, yes, definitely. That is my goal going into this.
Oh, no question about it, and certainly want to make sure everybody follows the Wrestling War Zone here. And I mean, talk about then some of your opponents here. We see the Moonlight Angels. We've got Trident with Bobby Ronan, Bobby Hollywood, and you're going to be here with the Lucha Love team with Ronan. And I mean, talk about your opponents though first. And I mean, don't tell us how you're going to beat them, but tell us and just give us the scouting report here on them.
Well, one team I have not ever wrestled before, so I'll be meeting them for the first time. The team I'm more familiar with is the Midnight Angels. And them, I have actually got a chance to work with before. One in particular, Ronnie Angel.
Okay.
He's been in the business for years before I have. He's been traveling. He used to travel up and down SoCal, United States, and up in Canada too. So big ups to him. I'll be really looking forward to wrestling him again. As for my tag team partner, he is just starting in the business. His name is Triv, and he's been trained by SoCal Crazy. He's been training all over the place up in San Diego as well. So I'll be definitely looking forward to that.
So let me ask you then, let's talk about your tag team partner first before we get to Ronnie Angel. Now, your tag team partner is just starting out. You've got a little bit more experience than him. So, I mean, talk about then, in a way, how do you kind of help him through a match like this? Because this is a match that has a lot of implications here. So kind of talk about how maybe you're going to coach him through here to be able to make sure he gets through his end of the bargain to help you guys get on top.
Number one, listen to me. Okay,
good point.
I'm
Good idea. Good idea.
Hold me in your hands. He's gonna do all the work. That's my plan.
Are you sure you want him to do all the work though? Because consider, and don't tell us how you're gonna win this match, but he is just starting out. I mean, do you feel confident in his abilities?
Yes, I do. I've seen the guy work.
Okay. So basically, from what you're telling us when it comes to a tag team partner, C-Love doesn't take a tag team partner unless he gives the full stamp of approval. And he's seen that this guy is going to go out there and do things that his opponents have no idea what to expect. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's fair enough. I can certainly see why you'd want to go for that. And we'll hope it puts successful taste in your guys' mouths. But I mean, Ronnie Angel is a guy you touched upon that has been in different places. He's wrestled in Canada. He's been up and down the United States. So what do you learn from, or what do you do and go about what he brings to the table here in this match?
I got to scout him on some of the YouTube videos I watched him in. And I must say, he's actually quite the competitor. So I'm going to have my hands full with him alone while worry about all my other opponents. Going into
It's interesting you talked about the scouting. Now, your tag team partner, nobody really knows much about because he's just starting out. But Ronnie Angel, on the other hand, you can look on YouTube and find his footage, and he certainly had a well-documented career in the business. If I were to actually say maybe that's a good thing in this case, that you're able to scout somebody so heavily in a Ronnie Angel, that kind of helps you prepare for this match because there's no tricks. There's no surprises. Is that actually maybe a fair question for me to ask?
Going into it, you never know what to expect. I mean, sure, I scouted him, but come the 4th of February, he may have some new surprises and tricks of his own going into it. So I don't know what to expect, honestly, except for what I know for sure.
So in this case, from what you're telling us, is that even though, yes, you heavily scouted him, C-Love, that he might actually have more tricks than meets the eye.
It could be a possibility.
All right, well, we'll certainly find out, and I'd like everybody to follow the Wrestling Warzone here on Instagram at Wrestle_Warzone_SoCal, and also CeeLo316 on Instagram. Also follow him on Facebook, and my name here is the Reverend Tom Bryson. We'll come back to the match here in a second, but I want to talk about the Wrestling Warzone because we had Enoch on here a couple weeks ago and we got a chance to speak about the company and talk about this company and obviously what's your goals here and just being a part of the company. What does it mean to you here?
Well, Wrestle Warzone has started up north back in 2017, up in Antioch, California, and that's where I got my wrestling off Daryl Johnson up there. That's his promotion run. He ran up north, and then years later he moved it down here. So it took up quite a bit of hiatus. And as for me, I've been wrestling for 15 years. And going into 2023, actually February will mark 15 years in my career. And I want, for the first time in 15 years, sad fact, I've never held a championship. And I want to change that this year.
It's so interesting that you brought this up because we have on a lot of wrestlers on Sportswire Radio, as I'm sure you might be aware of him. There was a wrestler recently, I had the same conversation with a guy, Nicholas Crenson, the new Messiah. He was on last week, and he's with Wrestling Championship Entertainment. And the last time he held the championship was 17 years ago. And you've been in the business now 15 years. So that's a long career. You've certainly, and I'll come back to Wrestling Warzone in a second, but I have to think throughout your career, you've really longed to have a championship. And talk to me about just what this would mean. Then let's say the tag team titles would come home to you. 15 years in this business without a championship. You got to talk to us about that.
As long as I've been in this business, yeah, it is a bitter pill to swallow not having a championship ever in this past 14 going to 15 years. And it will really mean something to me that if I decide anytime that I decide to hang them up, I want to be able to at least have a championship or two in my pocket or hang it up here somewhere.
Well, listen, you're not hanging it up right now, so hopefully you're not hanging it up in the near and distant future. So certainly don't let us down here. But that's a long time. And I had asked Nicholas Crenson this question. I said, Nicholas, you ever wanted to have a championship? Was there ever a moment? And this past year, he was in the running for a couple of championships and fell short. Was there ever a moment in the journey that you said, hey, you know what? I'm going to get that championship, or you thought you got a title and it didn't happen? Talk to me kind of about that maybe aspect of it.
Still weighs heavily on my mind, honestly. This long. No championship. I feel like I got nothing to show for. So
were you ever close?
Yes. And a couple of occasions I was.
And talk to me about those occasions going into that moment and maybe thinking, hey, I'm going to win the title and falling short. Talk to me about your psyche.
Well, the first title shot I got was in the beginning of my career, which was 2009, in a tag team match years ago against the two Andersons, DJ Anderson and Chase Anderson, which they ran a promotion called AWA. It was me and Rejo Tejano, I believe his name was. And that was the one case I thought I was this close to actually win the championship.
It's got to be tough because now you're starting out, you're in the business for a year. You get this title shot. You think, you know what? I'll get a championship. Don't worry about it. Listen, I'll win a title and there'll be many more opportunities. And then you didn't. It's got to be tough. You're going into it 13, 14, 15, 16 to where we are now. Was there times that, and I wasn't going to ask you this, but now I'm going to ask you this. Now we'll kind of find interesting things here to discuss with you. Well, was there ever moments you said, hey, I'm discouraged, I want to quit because I haven't won a title? Everybody wants to win a championship in this business. You know that. Was there ever that moment or that doubt that crossed your mind?
Quite a few times over the years, yes. But then you always have that somebody that's always encouraging you to not give up and is also proud of you for keeping going after all this time, despite your setbacks and roadblocks. And the one man I could think of at that point, actually, he's the only guy that's really I look up to as more of a mentor, who is a mentor that brought me into this business and trained me. One of my mentors that trained me, and that is SoCal Crazy. So big shout out to SoCal Crazy.
So let's talk about that then for a second. SoCal Crazy helps you get into this business. He's a mentor of yours. I mean, so talk to me then about what made you want to get into this business, have the career that you've had, and obviously the importance of SoCal Crazy.
Most of the stuff I learned from SoCal Crazy, I recently started to bring in more into my matches. And I always remember one thing he always said, and that is let your wrestling do the talking. And I've always carried that for years. And
Why is that so important?
How should I put this? Because some people in the business may get discouraged because of lack of wrestling ability, or coaches or others, their peers may actually tell you that you're not built for this business, you're not meant for it, you might want to find something else. Well, SoCal Crazy is one of those people that will always push you and encourage you. And he's a veteran in this business who I respect more than basically anybody else. And he's the kind of guy who always encourages his students to keep pushing forward, no matter what obstacles may head your way. And he's actually the most respected man in all of SoCal.
Wow,
especially in Lucha Libre.
That's really interesting because you think about the Southern California wrestling scene, and there's a big scene with a lot of different wrestlers, past and present, and those that have made it onto the big time. So I think that's really, really strong words. And I was curious now that I guess you would be considered a veteran. Do you feel like now, let's say, whether it's in the Wrestling Warzone locker room or any other locker room, that you are one of the guys that maybe wrestlers are going to for advice?
Quite possibly so, if I'm going to be honest. Only one to him. And even though I've wrestled almost, I want to clear this up right now. There was times I actually would call myself a veteran, but I'm still a student of the game. No matter how long you've been in this business for, I'm always still learning, picking brains from other veterans before me, like SoCal Crazy, and another honorable mention, B-Boy. I don't know if you heard of him. He's wrestled all over. He's wrestled in Japan. I'm nowhere near the level of those two great people in his business. So I would not completely 100% put myself on their level. Not even close. Even though I've been here for almost 15 years.
It's interesting that you said that because I would have thought, okay, you know what? You've been in the business for 15 years. You probably got hundreds and hundreds of matches under your belt, but yet you still kind of see yourself learning. It's almost like a musician. It's like a musician that would say, whether they're a rapper or a singer or a guitarist, whatever it might be, they say, well, you know, I'm not better than somebody else. I'm still learning and I'm always looking for new things. And I almost kind of think that that's kind of the same mindset that you have here, C-Love.
Yes, actually it is, because you never know who you meet in the business or who you will face. You will always learn something from them, no matter the level. You could be in there for like 10, 20 years and still be wrestling, and then you can pick up something new that you never thought possible. Hell, even rookies for in the first few years can actually teach you something.
That's interesting. I would never have thought that, because I would think, well, if they're a rookie just starting out, well, then they have to learn from somebody. So you just never know out there. But certainly, those are some very, very valid points. I'm really excited to have CeeLo Brown here on Sportswire Radio with us, because he is somebody that we've wanted to have on here a while. And the Wrestling Warzone has been a company that we've been working with for a little while here on Sportswire Radio. So, I mean, Darrow Johnson, I mean, I got to bring up Darrow. I think what Enoch said a couple of weeks ago was that he was almost like the Obama lookalike. And then I thought about, you know what? I'm trying to think of that. There was a show that was, I don't know if you remember, it was during the time when Obama was president. And it was called The First Family. And they had the guy on. He looked like Obama a little bit, but Darrow looks even more like Obama, and he's probably better, probably more well spoken. He's probably got more in the wrestling business with fans. I mean, so you got to talk to me about Mr. Darrow Johnson. All kidding aside, and I mean what he's meant, because you've actually known him a while from what you touched upon.
Yeah, for about 10, 12 years I've known Daryl Johnson because we trained together back
Okay.
then. And you mentioned Obama, Obama. That's his name, Obama, referred to Obama.
Yep. Yep.
That was quite the interesting character, even though he personally hates it, and that's the truth, right there. He
I,
personally hates
I'm
that character,
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure.
but it worked for him. It actually worked out for him.
Hey, listen, he went to the bank, right? He cashed the checks. I mean, look at it that way, right? That's what I always say, right? Whatever works to make the bank account bigger. But I mean, you talked about Darrow and that you've known him for a while and you trained together with him, but he went in a different path in being a promoter. I mean, was that something that you saw from Darrow when you guys were starting out that, hey, rather than him being a wrestler and have the career that you've had, that he was going to go out and be a promoter?
I think somewhere down the line, I think that was his plan because the man has quite a lot of ideas for one to start a promotion and the way he wants to do things. So yeah, definitely.
And that's got to be really difficult because first of all you've got to be able to have the funds, right? Second thing you've got to be able to have is the patience, right? Because this is a long-term venture, starting out a wrestling promotion. Not everybody's Tony Khan, everybody's Vince McMahon, and everybody's Dixie Carter, and everybody's Billy Corgan even, who have just millions and millions upon millions of dollars in the bank. You've got to be able to have a long-term plan. Also probably still have to be able to do your day in and day responsibilities. I mean, so that's got to be a really tough job that Darrow has there. I mean, you see it as a wrestler. I mean, I mean, like he's got to have those traits. I would have to think that would be that leader. And also on top of that, you talked about ideas, conceptually coming up with these storylines and these matches, and then also being able to keep everybody in line. You know, I have a background in politics, and the line they used to use in politics when I was working in politics was, politics is like herding cats. It's almost like all these different people in a room. And I would have to think it's the same thing than what Darrow has in his job as a promoter. I mean, so like talk about how difficult that his job must be.
Fortunately, it is difficult, but he's not alone. He has a team of his own
Okay.
that can handle the stuff in the back. Like, and Enoch is the booker.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about that with Enoch. He was
he's
on
a
here
booker,
and
so
mentioned
he's definitely
that. Yeah.
helping him. And I somehow help him a little bit with the promoting, to getting the word out there and out on the streets too. And there is one other person that I will not quite name exactly because he likes to be anonymous.
Well, definitely make sure that they don't get named on it because there's a lot of people that come on.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort. So Daryl is definitely not on this venture alone.
I want to give a shout out to somebody that's tuned in here. He's actually a wrestler in the UK. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question just now that he's here. He is the CCW Underground Heavyweight Champion. He is their world champion. His name is Hybrid. Hybrid came on the show Tuesday, and Hybrid had an MMA background in the UK. He was a cage fighter, and he did a number of different things. And he says, late to the show, but I'll be rewatching. What have I missed? Well, right now, we have on pro wrestling standout from the Southern California area, CeeLo Brown, a.k.a. C-Love, and he's going to be in action February the 4th, the weekend after your match here, Hybrid, for your championship next weekend at the Wrestling Warzone. He'll be in the ring in the All's Fair and Love Warzone breakout match here, where we'll be deciding who will be the number one contender for those first ever tag team championships. So C-Love is in the house here. And speaking of the UK, I got to ask you this question. I'm probably sure you were never going to get to think I get an answer or a question from this. Have you ever considered wrestling overseas? Have you wrestled outside of the Southern California area? I was just curious because we do have a lot of wrestlers from all over the world, and our guest before you came on is from upstate New York. So any places you like to wrestle or you have wrestled outside of California?
Definitely would love to wrestle outside of California. This whole time I've basically been stuck in California wrestling because of other stuff in my life.
Sure.
Outside, but definitely I would love to be up in Vegas or Arizona, New York, which is my second home, by the way.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, up in New York, in Brooklyn. I got family over there.
Where in Brooklyn, if you may ask? Because I'm from Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn and lived in Brooklyn up until up until I was in school, up until I was in, going into college almost. So where were you from in Brooklyn or your family?
Don't remember. I spent the first few
Years.
years of my life in New York, in
Okay.
Brooklyn.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Yep, and my dad used to live in Albany. Now he resides in
Well,
Texas.
Well, the wrestler we had on before I get to Hybrid, he's from Saratoga, which for most people that know New York geography is not too far at all from Saratoga and Albany. And Albany is the state capital. So what a
Yeah.
small world here, Mr. C. Love. And Hybrid wants to let us know that CCW have had people from all over the world. And we actually had an American wrestler not too long ago where CCW Underground Champion Hybrid was in a rumble with. That is Mitch Taylor. Mitch Taylor is from Indiana. I don't know if you've ever seen Mitch Taylor before, but he's this tall guy, speaks with a kind of like a not a southern accent, but like a Midwestern accent, and he goes around. He wears a crown. He's like a Burger King Jerry Lawler knockoff, and he was about a little taller than Jerry Lawler. He was in a rumble with Hybrid, and Hybrid actually eliminated him to win kind of their version of the number one contendership to where he got to win his championship and cash in. So CCW has people from Scotland and America and all different parts of the world. So that might be a company you might want to check out. And Darrow, Mr. Johnson, he knows a little bit about CCW because he's promoting wrestlers from all over the world who are coming in to Southern California. One of those wrestlers is a guy, Jenna, who's supposed to come on here to Sportswire Radio, and you can follow Colory Championship Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram as well, and I'm sure you'll certainly get more contact from them as well. And the owner of that company, CCW, is James Barris, who I know Mr. Johnson knows him. So I wanted to ask you, obviously, goals here in 2023. You touched upon the fact that you haven't won a championship in 15 years, and Hybrid's been in wrestling for a little over a year, and he's already a world champion. So what are your goals for 2023?
Definitely hold a championship for number one. And number two, as we just touched upon, wrestle outside of California for the first time ever. I definitely want to expand myself even more out there than usual.
Okay. All right. Well, I could say, though, in defense of the California wrestling scene, especially the Southern California wrestling, because there is so many great talent that have come out of the ways, that you are a part of a great place. I mean, New York and California are kind of big outposts and hotbeds always for professional wrestling, especially Southern California. I think about the Young Bucks. I think about Samoa Joe. I think about, Rey Mysterio from San Diego. It's a long list of people. You mentioned, obviously, SoCal Crazy. You can go up and down the list. I could be here all day with you. So in one sense, you could say in defense of yourself, Mr. C. Love, that you are a part of a great place that has just a hotbed of talent.
I can definitely say I am. Definitely, there's more talent here I would love to get in the ring with.
Anybody that comes to mind that you'd love to say, hey, that's on my bucket list, I'd love to wrestle or anything like that?
In California or anywhere?
It could be both. It could be both.
Well, one in particular I would love to get in the ring with, if possible, is Santana Jackson.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. That would be a really, really interesting match here. That's one. All right. Anybody else that comes to mind you'd like to see and you in a match with?
Well, for another one, I would love to get in the ring with SoCal Crazy again.
Ooh, I'll tell you what.
That's actually back on my list, even though it's happened before, but I like to happen again years later down the line, sometime down the line.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And up to recently, there's a few other people on my bucket list I would love to wrestle. Gino Rivera.
Okay, I know Gino Rivera.
I've known him for quite a bit since I started.
Okay.
And I always pick his brain every time I see him to see what else I can do in the ring for myself that I can use.
Mm-hmm.
Jamison Stanford, who recently returned.
Okay.
I don't know if you know who he is.
I've heard the name a little bit because obviously we speak with Darrow, and Darrow fills me in on a lot of different things. So, yeah, I've heard the name. I can't say I've watched, 55 matches of him, but I've heard the name through Darrow. Yep, and Enoch.
Yeah, Brandon Gadson's another.
Yep, that name I know.
And Brandon Gasson, Jude is, who's also from SoCal Pro, and he's been blowing up and down, up north and South California.
Okay, all right. That's a
Definitely
big,
put
big
him in.
geography difference there, Northern and Southern California. For those that know geography, that's a big, big trek. So that means he's doing something well.
Definitely. And the one other person in my mind that I would love to wrestle and
Hmm.
really test myself on against is Danny Limelight.
Wow. Okay, I know that name very well. Wow, that would be a really, really intriguing match. I hope somebody hears that out there. Those are some great, great answers there. CeeLo was crushing it tonight. And Hybrid says for you, set your goals, hit them, bulldoze through any roadblocks. 2023 can be your year. Wishing you luck. And I definitely
Thank you,
concur.
sir. Appreciate it.
And from one champion to a future champion here. And we are here with pro wrestling star CeeLo Brown, aka C Love, and it is a tremendous honor to have him. You can follow him on Instagram, CeeLo316. Like him on Facebook. Give him a friend request. Also, the Wrestling War Zone, please also support them as well here on Instagram and Facebook. We're so blessed to be speaking with the promoter and the company here and everybody else that's involved in all the great things at the Wrestling War Zone, because they have a big show coming up here on February the 4th where I think tickets are still available. You can go to Spring Valley Gymnasium is where you can watch it. What a great deal here. If you're a military veteran, it's only $10, $15, and $30 is a front row. General admission is $20, and kids under 12, $15. And it's going to be at 838 Kempton Street in Spring Valley, California at the Silver Star Social Club. You'll see the All's Fair and Love and War Zone card with the breakout match where CeeLo is going to be a part of that. You can also, again, follow Enoch is on there also. You can follow so many great people and friends here of Sportswire Radio. I highly encourage that you follow and support the Wrestling Warzone. It's wrestle_warzone_ SoCal. And we are hanging out here for a little while longer here with pro wrestling star Mr. CeeLo Brown, aka C Love. And one of the things I jokingly said to my guest before, which was EHW World Champion Stephen Havoc, and he chuckled and didn't think that you related to. But my first thought was, is in some way or form, is he related to D'Lo Brown? Are you related to D'Lo Brown? Which I figured the answer, but he kind of chuckled. He almost was almost playfully telling me, "Don't ask me that question." But are you related to D'Lo Brown?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay, fair enough. And Stefan kind of warned me not to ask you that question.
He ain't
But
the
I kind of
only one to
figured.
ask that question.
I'm the only one?
Yes, so you're not the only one.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, because I definitely know I'm not the only one that's asked you this question. So, I mean, I would have to say that that is definitely not the case, but you kind of reaffirmed what Mr. Stefan Havoc had told me. And he's a pretty hardcore guy in his own right, so that's kind of fair enough there. And I mean, also, I want to talk about Enoch for a few minutes, because here's a guy that has done a lot in the business. Here's a guy.
Yes, he
I mean, you
has.
pick his brain. I mean, we could have had him on here for hours upon hours, and he'll be back in the house for us later next month before some of the other shows. I know he's also a part of another company here that I'm sure maybe we'll see in the Valley Wrestling Connection. So,
Yeah,
what do you?
GWC.
Yep. What do you learn from Enoch and kind of just picking his brain and such and being in the
I
locker
had
room
the
with him?
honor of wrestling Enoch twice in his school that he was wrestling. Great in-ring competitor, awesome human being, definitely, and we both share a love for RPGs.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
That we do.
Wow, what a small world there! What a small world there. I mean, so what's he like then in terms of just kind of holding court with some of the town? Because he's a guy. I mean, he can talk, and when he talks, you listen.
Oh yes, he's definitely a talker. And he's been helping. He's helped me with some of my promos as well.
How important is that for you?
Actually, it's more important than ever. Especially, I've been listening to a few podcasters for the past couple of years. They're both from New York, I may add. You might be familiar with them.
Tell me who they are.
JD from New York and BC Amplified.
Okay, JD from New York. Now, I don't know him personally, but I have a friend of mine who's, you mentioned JD from New York, because I'm sure you know this. He is on the call for a lot of the House of Glory stuff. And I have a friend that I've interviewed, a guy, Chris Urban, and Chris Urban wrestles for House of Glory. He's an up-and-coming wrestler. He's been on one or two of their shows. He was on one trainee show, and he was on the show in August, which had a number of different big-time names that were on the card, and House of Black were most notably on there, and the artist formerly known as Low Key was on there as well. But yes, I know JD.
He's been one of my inspirations when I first joined the business, low key. I
Yo,
always kind
wow,
of like
what?
to model myself for him a little bit.
Wow, what a small world, because Loki also is from Brooklyn. And Loki, I remember watching, because I'm sure you're a student of the game. I remember first watching him on the old WWF Jacked and old Sunday night Shotgun Saturday night shows. He
Oh
was kind of
yeah,
an extra. Yep. And he was on there and he wound up wrestling in a number of different places. He was at the original TNA shows, and he had obviously a cup of coffee, most notably in the reboot of ECW and Ring of Honor he was in. I mean, he has had a long, long career, and so funny that you said that there when it came
yeah.
to Loki. But yes,
I first watched Low Key when he was Senshi in TNA, and
yes, yes,
then after that, I started doing a little more homework on him. Watching his matches from ROH in Japan. One match in Japan, notably, was him against AJ Styles, and he's one of
yes.
my. AJ Styles is also one of my all-time favorites in
Well,
the
AJ,
business.
well AJ Styles, I always most notably tell fans and different people that come on. I actually remember at the very, very tail end of WCW, he had literally like the smallest cup of coffee. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
he
where I
did.
first he had a very, very, and then there's somebody before I get to Stephen Havoc who's tuned in here. I actually interviewed a wrestler that was, I don't know if you know, the old NWA Wildside era, a guy, Chad Parham. He was a part of a group called the Lost Boys with Gabriel, and he actually
Okay.
trained with AJ. Yeah, NWA Wildside was out in Georgia. It was for a very brief period. It was kind of a small outpost for WCW or post WCW, certainly for the TNA, the old beginnings of TNA. And that's kind of where I also have a little bit of knowledge on AJ Styles. He actually grew up with him practically, trained with him and such. So it's funny you said AJ Styles, but Stephen Havoc wants to tell me, thanks for having me. Also, good luck out there, CeeLo. Keep on
Thank
grinding.
you.
That's something that motivates you and kind of keep on hanging in out there and grinding, knowing that, you know what, there are other people out there that are watching you. And I mean, is that something that motivates you?
Yes, and at the same time, a little bit nervous because I always think about
Why?
when they see me wrestle, they see my videos or whatever, watch me. I always think of any other. You never know who could be out there, like other promoters or other wrestlers that might be scouting for other promotions. I was thinking, did I do this right? Did I do good? Am I captivating people as I should? Which is the one thing I want to focus more on this year is captivating more people with my character, like
But
drawing more
you,
people in, whether they
but
love me or they hate me.
do you try anything different? Do you still stay in the core values of Sea Love? I mean, how do you go about that?
Actually, with Sea Love, I've always kind of tried something different, which upon going this year, I'm going to try something a little bit new this time around. Basically,
Okay.
I'm trying something new, but I'm also going back to the beginning.
Okay, well, don't tell us. And whatever you do, don't tell us what you
Yeah.
have planned, because then certainly that'll spoil the fun. It'll
Oh,
certainly,
I'm not going to
it,
spoil it.
yeah. Please, definitely don't hear. So, because then we'll be like, well, what are the reasons to blame him? And I was curious also because I wanted to talk about for a few minutes Valley Wrestling Connection. I mean, talk to me about that promotion. And I know Enoch's a really, really a big part of things there, obviously.
Yes,
And
he is.
is that a place that you'd like to see yourself in the future?
Oh, definitely. Definitely up there, up in Temecula. They got big things coming up there. Not
Well,
just,
go
but
ahead.
as a scene as a whole, like in SoCal, there's new promotions coming and some of them resurfacing and others just trying to hang on.
Well, let's hope they hang on. We don't want to see any promotions go out of business.
Yeah,
That's something
exactly.
I do not condone. I know that there's in the UK some talk of some different companies, and I don't want to say who they are. And you hear things, you say, well, let's root for everybody because it gives everybody a job, everybody a chance to showcase their talent. So we want to make sure everybody has that opportunity. And I wanted to break it here on Sportswire Radio because I know you're going to have an opinion on this person, but I'm going to have on here coming up next week on in the evening. And that is a world champion, a guy that a lot of people definitely know of. I know you know him very well. His name is Vito Fratelli, and Vito Fratelli is a big time guest here. He's going to be on here February the 1st. That's going to be 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Vito Fratelli, I mean, he is one of these guys. If you haven't gone and watched his matches and his content, you clearly need to go get your head examined and go on YouTube, go on social media, and watch this guy's content. What this guy does for his size, how he moves in the ring. He is literally, listen, not only is he a 5-star wrestler, he's like a 50-star wrestler, because what he can do in the ring here, it's just, this is going to be a real treat, a real honor. And I wanted to ask, because you've got a front row seat, you've been in a locker room with him. I mean, talk to me about what we can expect coming up on February the 1st with a world champion and a guy that's done a lot here. And of course, our Vito Fratelli. I mean, talk to me what we can expect from Mr. Fratelli.
Keep your eyes on him. That's the one. He's been, as you said, people talk about him, people know who he is, and he's been up and down California in both the American South and Lucha Libre.
Yep.
So his name is definitely be out there. So definitely continue to keep an eye out on this man right there.
I mean, here's a guy. Yep. Go ahead.
And going into WWZ, as you probably know, he is a WWZ
world
champion. For a reason. Like him or not. For a reason, he is. And you got to keep your eyes on him and his associate, Enoch.
Well, certainly that's why he is certainly a one of the, I guess you might want to say, lucha mafioso type. I mean, might want to be I know better pronunciation, but he is for a reason the SoCal heavyweight champion, and we are certainly going to be honored to having on Vito Fratelli. And Vito Fratelli, see him all over the place. And here's a guy, when it comes to just awards and nominations, he was a guy actually ranked number 21 on the Indie Movement's top 50. So that tells you that this is a kind of guy that he's a PWI 500 type. This is the kind of guy that you see him in the ring with big wrestlers. He's been in the ring with WWE guys. He's been in the ring with AAA guys. I mean, this is a guy that it's going to be a real honor to have him on Sportswire Radio. This is really, really going to be a treat, and I really can't wait to have on Vito Fratelli. That'll be February the 1st, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So very, very excited to have him on here, but I'm just as excited to have on here for a few more minutes Mr. C Love, who is certainly going to be here in the ring here coming up February the 4th, which is just 2 short weeks from now here at the Wrestling War Zone. Time definitely flies here. And I mean, I wanted to ask you this question. I know you've got a lot of moments in your career, but is there 1 or 2 moments that stand out most in your career so far?
Actually, a couple.
Okay.
One in particular in a promotion called FCW, which happened to be in a Valentine's Day. Me and another wrestler legend you might have heard from, Human Tornado.
Yes. I sure have.
Got to get in the ring with the Twisted Sisters, which is there are Holodead and Thunder Rosa.
You know, when you I knew that.
Mind you, this is actually the first time I actually got to wrestle women. So imagine my mind was in when I first got in the ring with those 2 ladies, or going into the ring with those 2 ladies. Because I'm just Thunder Rosa, getting the jitters before going in. And I have a couple of those throughout the career, throughout me wrestling for the past 15 years.
What was that like in wrestling a woman for the first time? And then you obviously have a wrestler that's going on, and you never know these things when you go out there, right? You didn't know at that time that Thunder Rosa was going to be this big superstar in the NWA and AEW. She also is in this world. She's also in this world as well, because she's one of the co-hosts for Busted Open on Sirius XM. She's on there Friday from 9 to 12. But I mean, wrestling a woman for the first time, do you approach that differently than you would a male? I mean, talk to me about that.
A little. I did at first a little bit, because one, I'm wrestling a woman.
Okay.
And I love women. I mean, my mother is a woman.
Well, duh, right? I mean, you have to be born, right? I mean, you have to have a woman and a significant other, right? Well, duh. I mean, so I would think you'd love women, right?
Mm-hmm. But going into it, I don't know what to say, how to put it into words. Going into it with a woman, do I look at it as a woman or just as another competitor? But as I got more eased into it, I basically look at both Thunder Rosa and Holodead as two other competitors who happens to be women.
Sure.
Tough
Sure.
ones to be exact.
Oh, no doubt. Listen, I mean, I've gotten a chance to obviously watch Thunder Rosa on the main stage and saw her wars with, of course, Dr. Britt Baker and many other feuds as well. And there's no question that Thunder Rosa definitely hits. And I hear her speak on the radio, and she's a tough woman. I mean, so certainly, I mean, I could certainly see that you don't treat these women like they're women, because they'll come out there and they'll knock your teeth out, especially somebody like a Thunder Rosa and even her tag team partner. I mean, and I think in a lot of ways, wrestling has evolved also in the last 10 years when it comes to women. Because you think about women's wrestling, it's like you think of what we've seen with WWE and AEW, and that's got to be good. I mean, I would have to say then wrestling's evolved quite a bit then when it comes to just women's wrestling since when you started. Talk to me about that.
Most of them are women, because it's more harder for women to break into wrestling, because you see some audiences, mainly men, will look at them as sex objects.
Sure.
Because I know a few that do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Then actually wrestling saying women don't belong in the ring. Nobody don't want to see women's wrestling, which is complete BS.
Absolutely.
I see women tear it up for years.
I could argue that, listen, Charlotte Flair could very well be the best wrestler in all of wrestling. I mean, that's just male or female.
I would have a counter argument for that one.
Well, give me the counter argument.
She's definitely one of the best, but I wouldn't count her as the best. She's definitely one of the most athletic, and definitely put a stamp on herself and her own legacy.
Absolutely. Well, but my point was just in general wrestling. I could make an argument.
Yes.
Yeah. That's my point was more or less to say that I think about wrestlers like Charlotte Flair. You could certainly throw out a number. Dr. Britt Baker, you could throw out there. I mean, you could throw out Jamie Hayden. I mean, you could throw out, a long list of names. You could throw out there Deonna Purrazzo and Impact. I think I know she doesn't have the championship now. I mean, listen, Bianca Belair. I mean, there's so many women's wrestlers. My point was that I think of them not just as people I might want to look at or in a magazine. I look at them and say they're really, really good talent. They have really great talent, and what they can do in a ring. I mean, I couldn't do that. I mean, listen. So you have to give them all the respect in the world for anybody that kind of thinks. Definitely. Oh, and so do I. I mean, I've interviewed women's boxers, so trust me. I certainly don't look at it that way, and I'm glad that we've evolved in society from the days of like the Jeff Jarrett kind of storylines about women being belonging in the bedroom and the kitchen. So it's a good thing that we've evolved, and I'm happy that you've been a part of that here. So obviously, I know you're a busy man. You've got a lot going on here, and it's really been an honor to have you on. So I wanted to ask you a couple quick questions here before we get out of here. The first one is, before February the 4th, I wanted to ask, do you have any final words for your opponents coming up here at the Wrestling Warzone breakout match?
Yes, I do, actually. That is, brace yourselves, boys. You're going to see a whole new Sea Love coming. And this man won't be doing any more singing. Not much, anyway. Instead of giving, I'm still going to give the love to the women, but I'm going to be dishing out more tough love.
Oh, tough love. I tell you what, that sounds like I would certainly be bracing for myself if I were the opponents of Mr. CeeLo Brownie. Certainly the Moonlight Angels and the Trident might want to tread very, very lightly when it comes to that. And I also wanted to ask you this question, because I always ask every wrestler that comes on here, where else do you think, or where else do you have lined up? Maybe we can watch you, or maybe fans can go see you out there in the ring coming up here after February the 4th.
Possibly One Ring Circus, which is also a promotion in San Diego. VWC, of course.
We'll stay tuned for that. Well, I'm sure I have more developments on that here on Sportswire Radio between now and the 11th.
Later on down in here, Relentless Pro Wrestling, which is they just had their second show here early January, and they will have another one in April. So definitely a shout out to Relentless Pro.
Oh, absolutely. No question about that. That'll be right around the time of WrestleMania weekend. So if you're in California, that's going to be a really, really, really big weekend out there. So I got a feeling, my friend, that you're going to really be a part of things here. No question about that. So, all right. So, I want to give you the floor.
That's definitely one of my goals.
Okay. So I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else that you want to plug, share, or say, and social media, anything else we missed. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. I really, really enjoyed the opportunity tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, granted, this was my first interview so thank you for popping that cherry for me.
Oh, okay. I hope that we made you feel good. I hope that we made you feel comfortable, and I hope that we can do more with you in the future because I think that you've got a lot to offer, not just in the ring but on the mic. And we love being the first. I've had the good fortune in 4 years of doing this that I'm the first, not just for wrestlers but for politicians, athletes. I've had coaches, and I'll make you feel good. I had on a state senator here in New York, and you think, oh, state senator, they're well known, they're in the press all the time, and they were a lot more nervous than you were, my friend. Trust me on that. So I can tell you, you definitely held your own. And any social media you'd like to plug as well, or anything else you want to share before we get out of here?
Pretty much Facebook and Instagram that you just plugged in for me already.
CeeLo316 on Instagram, Facebook, also CeeLo Brown, send a friend request, and Wrestle Warzone as well. Please make sure you follow the company. That'll also be Wrestle_Warzone_SoCal. And I want to thank Darryl Johnson for setting up this opportunity. So, my friend, good luck out there in the ring in 2 weeks. And I think it'll be a great weekend because it'll be in between Royal Rumble and the Super Bowl. So that means everybody can go out there and buy a ticket out there at the Wrestling Warzone. All's fair in love in Warzone, so that means it's a great time to get a ticket. Tickets are very cheap and affordable. Take the family, take the kids, have a great time because we have a good feeling that Lucha Love with Ronan is going to get the job done. So thank you, my friend.
And can I say a couple more things before we...
You can say anything you want. Floor is yours. I'll keep you as long as you like.
All right, one, I definitely want to give a shout out to Wrestle Warzone. VCW, Relentless Pro Wrestling, and all South California Wrestling, which will be having a show soon. And for anybody in the SoCal San Diego area, look out for Border X Lucha Libre.
Okay, all right. So that'll be stuff I'm sure that we'll plug. We'll have you back on here. We'll get more updates from that. I know that we'll have Mr. Fratelli on coming up here on the 1st of February. We'll see. Hopefully he doesn't break me in half, but we'll see how we hold up with that. We'll definitely make sure we tag you in that announcement. I know Enoch will certainly be curious about that. So we'll have a lot more coverage, and just the beginning with you, my friend. And can't wait to watch you coming up here in 2 weeks and see what the future brings. And I have a feeling you're going to get some gold here this year. You're going to get some gold. I got the feeling gold is on the way, and certainly thank you for coming on here tonight with us.
Thank you. And one last thing, and this is for everyone in this country, wherever in the neighborhood, just support indie wrestling, please. Because anywhere you go, there's always indie wrestling promotions around. So if you happen to be around on a Saturday or Friday night, don't know what to do when you like wrestling, look around, get into a show, go to it and enjoy it. Because indie wrestling is a big thing right now. It's starting to get even more out there. So WWE, AEW, ROH, any other promotion you usually see on TV that you can't get to almost every time because they're up in other cities, look local. There's wrestling everywhere.
Think local.
So please support independent wrestling.
Absolutely, and you'd be happy to know that in doing this, all we talk about really here is indie wrestling, whether it's in the UK, we do some stuff with you guys now, a company called Wrestling Championship Entertainment, and, a number of different companies out there. So that's been I've been one of the guys, I think, over the past couple of years on sports where I really don't cover. I actually am one of the few people that doesn't really cover WWE. I mean, I talk about it from time to time, but really, we've made our teeth in the UK and some other places as well, Scotland, and certainly with you guys now. So certainly independent wrestling is always one of my themes. But that's always been my background. I cover Division III college sports. I have a background in that as well, college athletics. So I see so many similarities in those worlds. So happy to continue to support your companies, especially support Mr. CeeLo Brown, a.k.a. C-Love. He's going to be giving some tough love, I promise you, on February the 4th. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you. And Compton Mania. I had to throw
that. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we were here tonight with pro wrestling stars Stephen Havoc, the EHW World Champion, and CeeLo Brown is going to be wrestling for the Wrestling Warzone's breakout match coming up at All's Fair in Love and War Zone at the Spring Valley Gymnasium, 838 Kempton Street in Spring Valley, California. I want to thank Darryl Johnson for setting that opportunity up for us. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. We'll be back here on 10 o'clock Eastern Time. I'll be speaking about all things related here to the world of the NFL and some other things as well with the Sportswire Radio Gang. And if you're on sportnarium.com/player, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming here in about 20 or 5 so minutes. And if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, I'll be back here, like I said, about 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody, here for tuning in on the #1 global radio station. If you are on Facebook, continue to support our page at Sportswire Radio, YouTube at Sportswire Radio, and sportnarium.com/player. Good night, good afternoon for now.